Before you continue watching this, know that this video may scare you away from drinking ayahuasca and not for the reasons you may imagine. However, these are reasons that in our retreat center we've had a couple of people look back at and then tell us that they wish they hadn't come, that they regret having come and drinking medicine. So I'll be straightforward with you. The number one reason you may regret drinking ayahuasca is because your life has to change. Recently we had one of our participants, a couple of years ago, that he came, and before he came he was quite isolated, quite resentful about the absence of healthy connections in his life, the absence of reciprocity in his friendships. He felt like he was there for everyone but nobody was there for him. And he couldn't see how it was him and his expectation that created a distance between him and people. He couldn't see that it was that distance that made him isolated, that distance that made him accept a job that paid him well, but that ultimately was not what he loved. He was a very artistic man and he wanted to explore that. Extremely talented, but had not given himself the permission and the chance to not go the corporate route and explore his talent and make a living out of that. So before coming, he had all these things, but he was in a place where he had managed to cope. He was making enough money, he could afford yummy food, going to restaurants here and there. He had found enough distraction, mostly through food, from the pain that he was feeling, the pain of isolation, the pain of not having a partner that he valued and valued him, basically a lot of loneliness and resentment and unresolved childhood things. After he drank medicine, he realized when he went back that all that was stored away, all that was kept away, came up to the surface. And he regretted coming because he was not ready for all the trauma or all the memories and all the things that he now had to face. And this is a common thread. Ayahuasca is not a feel-good experience. It can be quite confrontational. It can make you remember things that you've pushed away for far too long. However, as we've shared before, this is like a wound. You can ignore the wound. You can get drunk and pretend that nothing happened. But the wound is just going to keep festering. The disease is going to spread. It's going to get infected. And by the time you notice, the longer it takes you to notice, you may have to chop your whole arm. Looking at it is painful. Dealing with it is more painful because you have to sanitize it. You have to pour alcohol on it, and that burns. But if you're willing to sit with that burning sensation for some time, you have a chance at healing. You have a chance at life from a different place. So the number one reason that people regret drinking ayahuasca is that they're not willing to embrace the changes that must come in their life. And that leads me to the second one, which is a sense of responsibility. A lot of people feel that they're the way they are because their mom did this, their father did this, their uncle did this, their ex-husband, ex-wife, their childhood, everybody, the government. And one thing that medicine has taught me many, many times, because I used to think this way, especially when it came to my romantic relationships, women are not evolved enough, they're not conscious enough, they're not compassionate enough, they're not good listeners, they're not stable enough. I had all these ideas of why I broke up with my partners, how I was the great guy and they just needed to do more work on themselves. And every single time the medicine showed me how I was responsible for the chaos in my relationships, how I was the one that was creating a lot of that toxicity. It was of my own creation, and therefore I was able to be humble, lower my head, accept, and do the work that was needed. It was not easy because it meant that I was not right. I had to drop my righteousness. I had to consider that maybe my life is a mess because I have allowed it to spiral into that mess. Sure, many things have happened that were not pleasant, but many people had worse hands dealt to them and had made something more beautiful, more meaningful. I had a good hand in many ways, and I was consuming myself in a lot of nonsense. So a lot of people do not feel happy about the ayahuasca ceremony because They didn't get the answers or the experience they expected. They got the one they needed, and this can be confronting. They wanted the medicine to tell them, yes, break up with your husband, ditch your wife, change your job. They didn't want to hear like, hey, you're closed off, you're afraid, you're mediocre, you don't do things with love. This is harder because that means that it's all up to us, that nobody is to blame. So this is one of the main reasons why people regret drinking medicine, because suddenly it's up to them. And before, at least they had an excuse. Finally, and one of the bigger reasons is that what you see cannot be unseen. This man I spoke of at the beginning of this video, he was overwhelmed because now he had to go through therapy. Now he had to deal with the shit that he had not dealt with before. And now he couldn't find refuge in the food and the things that he felt were so yummy and his ways of coping. And he felt frustrated because he thought that drinking ayahuasca made him lose his love of food. And that would be like me saying I'm angry because ayahuasca made me like drinking compulsively a lot less, to the fact that I don't do it anymore. I'm frustrated because ayahuasca made me lose interest in random hookups and ongoing Tinder dates that led nowhere, or eating shitty food. Sure, many things are gonna drop, and sometimes those things are things that we hold on tightly to. And if we cannot let go of that holding on, we're gonna suffer. We will regret drinking medicine because we cannot expect for all that we are to change and for our life to remain the same. What you see cannot be unseen. It's like you've been living in an apartment that is dark and smells ugly and you trip all over all the time and you're wondering what's happening. Life is not pleasant. I don't feel at home. Suddenly you go on an experience where the lights are turned on, even if just for a little bit. Now you see all the garbage you have accumulated, all the baggage, all the dirt. Of course, before it was pleasant. Now, before you knew your ways of walking around the darkness so that you won't fall too often. But the fact remained that you were not happy and you did not feel at home. Now you've seen that there's a lot of work to do, and that is not pleasant. And you are the only one that can do it. The house is a mess and only you have a broom and a mop, and it's up to you, and it may take you a long time, and some areas are filthy because they've been abandoned. Sure, you could blame ayahuasca for turning the lights on, or you could recognize, wow, there's work to be done and I am the only one that can do it. However, if you accept this, you have a solid chance at your home smelling nice and not tripping all over all that baggage and garbage that you have collected, of feeling at home, at peace, at bliss inside of yourself. So do not drink ayahuasca if you're not willing to take responsibility, if you're not willing for your life to change in radical ways where your ways of coping are no longer as seductive or useful for you. And especially do not drink ayahuasca if you are not willing to accept what the medicine will show you, no matter how dark, no matter how complex. And again, ensure that the people that you work with are there for you if you need help with integration. Hope this was useful. Like and subscribe if you like this video. If you want to drink medicine in a safe place where you're supported through the preparation and integration process, the links are below. Talk soon.